So, welcome back to the elephant in the room, you guys. I know that I've been gone for a minute. I'm back again, taking a little bit of a break, doing a lot of different things in my life, getting a lot of different videos deleted, and I was kind of tired of that. So, but I'm taking a little bit of a different approach, going back to a little bit of the philosophical debate roots, and we're just going to do a little bit of a different thing today. With that said, today we are going to talk about how I think the Lemurian people were Amazons and how the Amazons were actually black women. All right, so yes, I said that, how I think the Amazons were black women. So stay tuned because I'm your spying elephant, Brandon, and this is the elephant in the room. So I know that intro was a little bit of a what moment because there's so many people that are like, well, there was no black people, there wasn't race and anything. Well, I'm going to break it down for you guys because, yeah, I'm going to go over all of that kind of stuff. Yes, just give me a chance. All right. So once again, I'm switching away from politics and that kind of stuff for now, just because I'm tired of getting suspended and deleted, because that's really the biggest reason why I've been gone for so long. But anyway, so Lemuria and the Amazons, let's get into that. So before I start anything, let me just make a quick disclaimer. I'm not religious. I'm very spiritual. I grew up in the church. I like to use the Bible for a lot of the references because I feel like it just helps people understand better because I give them something that they can relate to and they can understand. But yeah, but like when I look at the Bible, when I see the Bible, I take it as very symbolic. I think the Bible is very much based on astrology and anatomy, and there's just different components in the Bible that relate to that. And if you guys want to know more about what I mean about that, leave some comments asking about that, and I'll probably make a video about that. So like when I use the Bible, I use it very symbolically, and I like to use it to give different examples of what I'm talking about. Now to start off with, I'm going to put a couple different questions in your minds, okay? Yeah, so when you think about when the Lord said to the animals, to be fruitful and to multiply, what do you really think happened? Do you think it was a bunch of male animals that got pregnant? Or do you think the Lord stopped and just created a bunch of female animals so that way they can copulate with each other and create more children? Or do you think it was a bunch of female animals that got pregnant and were fruitful and multiplied? Okay, question number one. So, like, if Adam was made first, wouldn't it make sense to have the animals be made male first as well? Like as above, so below. It's matching, like wouldn't that make sense? Because that's how God is creating things. If he was going to create man in his image, wouldn't he create it in a similar fashion to how he created animals, like male first? I mean, this is just philosophical conversation. So that's the first one. All right. So this leads me to the next point about the Amazons and how they were multiplying. There's a lot of the stories about how they would raid the ships of men and how they would have their way with the men. Sometimes they would kill the men and throw them overboard after they were done. When they would have their male children, they would either throw them out to sea or kill them or whatever. There were also different stories of how they would throw their male children to seas, where the god of fire, Hephaestus, would take them into the forge so they would forge weapons and stuff like that, and they didn't even know that they were buying their weapons from their own sons. There's different stories like that. But honestly, when I hear these things and when you compare it to different things in different other stories of women in history, and I'm pretty sure other women can relate to just feeling demonized all the time, it just feels like another one of those situations to me. Just like when healers were called witches and burned at the stake, any strong woman today being labeled as a bitch. If they have a strong attitude and just are forceful about their way, Numbers 31, and how the little untouched girls were kept by barbaric men as wives after they did what they did. Like there's a lot of different things in there that really put the innocence of women just out the window. But what I'm really trying to point out here is that, like, what if this wasn't the true story of the Amazons? Like, what if we are being told a mischievous truth or whatever or whatsoever in regards to these women? Like a quick little something that I just thought of before I get too much into it. Just so you know, if anybody's seen Lovecraft Country, the mom that disappeared and saw that I am lady that who are you? She's like, I am. That to me is how the Amazons look like. All right. Also, that lady, her name was Hippolyta, And guess what? The queen's name is Wonder Woman's mom is the queen of the Amazons. Her name is Hippolyta also. All right. So, but like once again, what if this really isn't the original story of the Amazons? Like what if they weren't, what if they didn't need men to reproduce? You know, what if women in general don't need men to reproduce? All right. So Discover Magazine published an article where microbiologist Karim Nayernia of the Northeast England Stem Cell Institute found that by immersing stem cells and I quote, by immersing stem cells harvested from men's bone marrow in a cocktail of chemicals that mimic the environment of the testes, Nayernia and his team turned the stem cells into immature sperm. All right. So before we continue really quickly, I like to give my own disclaimer so that way we can all follow along and that way people aren't like, oh, Brandon's not trying to do anything. Once again, philosophical conversations. I'm open to it. Let's talk about it. All right. So the editor of the journal Stem Cells and Development, all right, retracted the research paper because they said that the first two introduction paragraphs were plagiarized. So they took it down everywhere. All right. So they said like, so my real question about that is, what does that have to do with the data? All right. Why couldn't the data have been taken out and being shared somewhere else? Like, where is that? All right. They said the first two paragraphs were plagiarized, and they said that Nayernia couldn't prove that he didn't get it. So it sounds to me like they could have even faked that. I mean, this is also conspiracy theory. Like, but let's ask, how easy would it be for like the government to be like, oh, somebody else predated you on this. This is plagiarism. You copied them. What about the data? Where's the data at? They didn't say anything about the data being faulty. They said the first two paragraphs were plagiarized. So why hasn't anybody else looked into it by now? All right, question again. And if anybody can actually find, because I love asking these internet gurus because like whenever I ask a question, sometimes they can just find it for me. If anybody can find the research paper that Nayernia wrote and the data in the original form, like please send that to me because I want to read it. All right, please. But basically, the document, the research said that they could potentially recreate sperm and fertilize an egg and give men who weren't able to biologically father children before the chance to actually father children. But they also said that this would allow two women without a man to father their own, to parent their own child as well. All right, biological children. But they said that each of the offspring would always be a female. All right, they said because the woman carried the XX, they would always be female offspring. Sounds like an Amazon to me. Sounds like an Amazon to me. Hello. All right. So going back to the Bible again, there are two different occasions and how man and woman were created. All right, there's Genesis 1:26 through 27, and there's also another account in Genesis 2:20 through 23. All right, now Genesis 1:26 says, and God said, let us make man in our image, all right, our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the earth, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. All right, 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. All right. This is in Genesis 1 after the whole the creation story and everything. God doesn't have a sex. In my opinion, God doesn't have a sex. They are the universe. They're everything. They birth life. They just birth everything. Like the planets, everything comes from them. If you really think about it, God is everything. God is the universe. I am that I am. Period. That's what it is. And like, personally, if the creator were to have a gender, it would be, in my opinion, more so feminine due to the fact that the universe is birthing everything, creating everything. It's a fountain of life. It's the center of life. Just like the womb creates everything, womb in, and I'm gonna get into that in just a minute. If God were to have a sex, I believe it would be more of a feminine aspect, loving, caring, protecting, cherishing, because they're creating everything. Like a mother, like a normal mother, loves their child and would protect their child and would do everything for their child. And I also feel like in the Bible, there's a few different hints to actually the creator being more of a feminine character or feminine being, feminine entity. Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. All right. So what normal mother doesn't have a connection with their unborn child? What normal mother doesn't imagine, doesn't think of, doesn't like envision what her future child is going to be before they knew her? Once again, what did it say? Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Before she formed that child in the belly, before she even had a partner, she knew what her children was going to be like. All right, your thoughts become your reality. Before God said, "Let there be light," He thought about it first, and according to in the Bible, so thoughts become your reality. What you speak, what you say is very important too. All right, so the King James Version straight up says, "God created man in their image." All right, they created a male and a female to represent the duality, which is them. According to the King James Bible, this is what they're writing. All right. And if they created men and women in this manner, that would mean that most likely the animals were created in a similar fashion. All right, male and female at the same time. All right, according to the Bible. I'm just using the Bible in these cases, but I'll get into what I think and what I'm asking questions about in just a minute. But this is what I'm using the Bible for. And if you guys take the Bible for what it's saying, it would make more sense for it to be like this. Male and female were created at the same time, like what it says in Genesis 1. All right, just like the animals were created male and female at the same time. All right, because God is a duality. God is just them. It's almost like when they talk about the divine hermaphrodite in a way. Like I don't like it's almost like that, but I digress. But once again, it just would make a lot more sense if male and female animals were created in the same at the same time, like the Bible is saying, just like how man would have been created at the same time, like Genesis 1 is explaining. So now that we have the understanding that male and female animals were most likely created at the same time, and that Adam and Eve were most likely created at the same time according to Genesis 1, all right, that would make more sense. Be fruitful and multiply. That would make more sense, So, but does that mean that Adam and Eve were copulating with their children and their children were copulating with each other to form us? That gets a little bit weird. And I don't see many people questioning that aspect of the Bible. And they're just taking it for what it is. But because Adam and Eve copulating with their children and their children copulating with them, like in that group, that would make more sense to how we came about today, how population, right? Because that's the only way that children can come about according to what science is telling us. But like, that sounds completely insane. Why would the Lord do that? And then in the Bible, the way that it talks about family members seeing each other naked, why would that be the basics and the beginning of everything? Like, why aren't people asking more questions like that? Why does the Bible say, no, don't look at your brothers and sisters like this? But in the beginning, that's what they were doing. Let's make it make sense. All right, let's make it make sense. So like, what is happening? Well, let me give you my philosophical opinion. All right, my philosophical thoughts, if you will. Let me give it to you. Well, just like how the well-known and well-used NIV Bible has missing verses in it, whole verses in it that are gone out of the Bible that people are using in their churches, all right? I personally believe that the Bible was altered over time to fit certain things that they wanted to do, certain agendas, and that's just what it is. There's many different versions of the Bible today. We also hear about the Council of Nicaea that was in something like 325 AD. We also know that King James changed the Bible because he wanted to update it, and that's the one that we use now. All right, but both of these are very public and well-known changes to the Bible. All right, but I don't see people questioning the fact that in the Bible, it literally says that God doesn't speak to us anymore. So who gave them the approval? Who gave them the right to change or remove and take out God's holy word when they're just men? And why are you guys allowing it to happen? Implied consent works with religion too. And here's the thing. I'm not just going to sit here and say like, you guys, why are you guys because like I've lived that life and I didn't understand what was happening before either. But now I'm starting to see things a lot differently, and now it's time for us to question things. In the Bible, it says that if you seek questions and if you question, you seek knowledge in the name of the Lord, like with trying to understand and get closer to God, then that's okay. And that's literally what started all of this. What started my whole journey on all of this, and it opened my eyes, you guys. It opened my eyes to a lot. And I really think that you guys should just do it too. But getting back to it, I feel like this is why we've had all these updates once again, ever since the Vulgate came into ever since the Vulgate translation. Like, in my opinion, the truest way to truth and getting closer to God and religion is through study. These so-called religious scholars should have left the Vulgate alone. They should have created study guides to that we could have just studied and enhanced our knowledge and got closer to God by studying. You don't break it down into an easy to chew. Like, that's not how you get that's not how spirituality works. Nothing that matters, nothing that's worthwhile is easy. It's hard. You know, the path of truth and righteousness is not easy. It's hard. I struggle with it all the time. Even like I struggle with it all the time. But I just don't appreciate when people don't ask questions, and like when like, especially when it comes to religion, how they force like this one belief on things, yet they ignore the fact that King James wrote a book about demonology, and he practiced how, like, spirits and all that kind of stuff, and then he wrote the Bible, and then he rewrote the Bible talking about how you're not supposed to do these kind of things. But like, if the Bible's untouched and if the Bible's unchanged, wouldn't that part of the Bible have been in there before he rewrote it? So shouldn't he have known better than to be messing with that things in the first place? He wrote a whole book called Demonology. Look it up, you guys. Anyways, Genesis 2:20-21 says, and Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found an help meet for him. All right, so basically Adam's saying that there wasn't anybody for him. A lot of us are familiar with that part. All right, King James Version just speaks differently. All right, verse 21 says, and the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept, and he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. 22, I'm going on a little bit more than I said. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from man, and made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Blood of my bones, flesh of my... It sounds like Game of Thrones, doesn't it? But anyways, reading between the lines here, I'm literally seeing that Adam is upset because he's looking at all the animals out there, according to the Bible, the male and the female animals that were created, all right? Because he had a male and female before, and somehow she left, all right? AKA Lilith, the story of Lilith, maybe, all right? Lilith left Adam because she didn't want to deal with that. If you guys want to hear more about that, let me know in the comments. But could that have been Lilith? All right, maybe Adam was missing her, and he felt lonely, he felt sad, he might have been a little bit jealous that the animals had like companionship and were able to have all these animals and these children. So because the Lord didn't want Adam to be sad anymore, the Lord put Adam to sleep, did a little bit of a surgery on him, took out one of Adam's ribs, and created Eve. All right, so that's pretty much how they say that was happened. So the part about that gets me, once again, another philosophical question: how could Adam have been experiencing these feelings of loss or jealousy or sadness from looking at these animals before he even ate from the tree of life? How could he experience these emotions unless he already had something to feel from it? You know, unless he really had a true sense of loss, unless he really had somebody there, unless he had Lilith there to keep him company, man and woman created originally, and she left, all right? And so he was sad. Adam said that she was bone of his bone, flesh of his flesh. He said, like, he called her woman because she came from him. You know, once again, this sounds very symbolic. So getting into like a little bit more of the genetics aspect of it, like science tells us that the XX chromosomes creates women, the XY chromosomes create men, all right? Girls and boys. All right, if you take the X and the Y chromosomes by themselves and you compare them to each other, science would actually tell you, research would actually tell you that the X chromosome is roughly 3 times larger than the Y chromosome. All right, roughly 3 times larger than the Y chromosome. Through many different studies, science would tell us that you cannot take a part and create a whole. All right, you can't take a part and create a whole. You can't take half an orange and create a whole orange. All right, but you can take a whole orange and create 2 halves. You can take an X chromosome and cut it into a third and create a Y chromosome. All right, but you can't take a Y chromosome and amplify it by 300%, build it up 3 times. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. It doesn't go backwards like that. All right, and science will tell you that. It's like when you actually ask the question, how did man create the X chromosome that carries 900 genes, and when the Y chromosome carries, what is it, roughly 55? How could 55 chromosomes create 900? I don't believe they did. I don't believe they did. All right, so these are just my philosophical opinions, and I welcome everybody to poke holes in it, because this is how we have proper, constructive philosophical debates that actually get things moving, get things changing, and just have people asking the right questions. Moving on a little bit, there was an article that was published that talked about how nearly 1% of American pregnancies, births were considered virgin births. All right, once again, caveat disclaimer, because I want you guys to understand what's really going on. This was done with a survey where the women were like saying that, yeah, I was a virgin birth pretty much. All right. And so like you have people that could have been like, didn't want to get in trouble. You have people that probably didn't understand how sex works, that their parents didn't talk to them about it. You have probably people that are in there that are like mentally disabled, that were taken advantage of, and we've heard stories of that too. But out of that 1%, I am so certain that there are definitely virgin births in there that are happening. All right. There's going to be a small percentage of that are happening. And just like how back in the day, they were able to do it, AKA the Amazons were able to reproduce on their own without men. The physical like the black woman is literally the physical representation of God. She's able to carry all the genes throughout her recessive gene capabilities can allow her to birth a white child, blue eyes, a black child, blue eyes, blonde hair, Melanesian children, like everything, but it can't work the other way. The black woman is literally the physical representation of God. And science is kind of telling you that this is nothing that science isn't telling you on their own. And I feel like this is why the world is such disarray, because we're not understanding what's really going on. And they have us literally talking about a white Jesus when that shouldn't be what we're looking at. But I digress again, because I'm here to talk about the Amazons and the Lemurians and things like that. But like, I just want to go back and talk about the history and the genetics specifically, because I want to align it so that way people can really understand what I'm trying to say. But all this leads back to my original question and my original statement. The Lemurian people were Amazons, and how the Amazons were actually black women. And I think I've addressed why I think that the original people were Amazons, because of how they were able to reproduce on their own. When it comes to these virgin births, here's my theory about this. All right, now take it for what it is. Now from different things that I've read, what I've come up with is that the Bartholin gland in women is able to really tap into the bone marrow, and is able to really transfer that bone marrow, those stem cells that they find in the bone marrow, and transfer those into male gametes, which turn into male sperm cells that can impregnate the woman. All right. And I honestly feel like this is how the Amazons were pretty much self-reproducing on their own back in the day. And I feel like this is how these women are having virgin births today. And perhaps this is where you have those, what are they called? I think fibroids, where like those little tumor-like things grow with like hair and teeth and stuff like that in women. Perhaps this could be like an immature one of those. You never know. Like maybe women are starting to tap back into like how they used to be, and they're just starting to do that nowadays. Like science is saying that as a bunch of different things, but like philosophical questions we should be asking. That's really the first part of it. Now we have to touch on like why I said like I think that they were a specifically black woman, and where like these other races potentially could have came from. And if you guys want to know about that, smash that like button, leave those comments, share the video, and let me know that you guys are still listening to this kind of stuff, because I think that this is very important. But let me know what you guys want to hear about, because I think this stuff is really interesting. And you know me, Spine Elephant, asking all those questions. All right. So with that said, one love, peace, everyone. You know what's up. Yeah.